My fiance confessed that he has a secret family. Now he demands that I accept his second child. I remember the day he first told me about it, as if it were yesterday. That memory still causes me sharp pain, because it destroys all the dreams and plans I had carried in my mind for years. I was sitting on the couch in the living room, looking at him, thinking he was about to invite me out shopping or discuss details of our wedding. Back then, I still lived under the illusion that we were united in everything, that we were both preparing for a new, happy life. The room was silent, and I felt my heart sink when he asked me to listen without interrupting. He said I needed to stay calm and that, after his confession, everything might change. I asked him what he wanted to confess. He told me he had a secret family, a woman and a child he had told no one about, least of all me. I sat there as if thunderstruck, unable to utter a word. I listened to his story while he spoke as though lacking air. He said this secret family was not new, that it had started long before we ever met, but he never thought it necessary to tell me because he was afraid of my reaction, afraid I would leave him if he revealed old relationships and their consequences. I sat across from him, feeling my hands tremble. I recalled all our conversations about the future, how we planned a house, dreamed about decorating the living room, decided where to hang photos of the children we had hoped to have together. Suddenly, it turned out he already had a child and had been hiding it. I asked how long he had kept it secret. He said all the years of our acquaintance, which was more than just a month or two, long enough that he could have found a moment to be honest. My heart felt empty because I was facing a man I thought I knew, who had been lying to me for so long. I tried to see remorse in his eyes, but he looked tense, as if he himself could not believe he had finally decided to speak. I asked what he wanted from me now. He answered that, since we were getting married, I would have to accept his second child, accept the situation as normal. I asked how I was supposed to do that. He said he wanted his son to be able to stay in our future home often, maybe even live with us sometimes so that he, as a father, could be around the boy more easily, and that I would need to become, in effect, a stepmother. I sat there with a dry throat, not knowing how to react. My heart was full of pain and resentment. I said I had known nothing of his child, yet now he demanded I play a maternal role for a boy I had never seen. He answered that he understood it was not easy, but if I loved him, I had to accept his son, because the child was not at fault. In that moment, I felt a combination of despair and anger, because it seemed unfair. Yes, the child was not guilty, but why should I carry the burden of his deception? He said that once he had loved that other woman, that his feelings faded, but before their final breakup, she became pregnant. Even though they formally parted ways, she decided to keep the child, and he could not abandon her entirely out of a sense of responsibility, but he was also afraid to tell me because he valued our relationship and did not want to lose me. That was how he put it, but to me it all seemed like a chain of lies. He feared losing me, so he consciously misled me for years. I asked why he had not told me at least at the start of our relationship. He said he had hoped to settle it on his own but failed, and now he wanted to be honest and enter our marriage without secrets. But the word honest sounded like mockery. If he had truly been honest, he would have told me long ago, instead of waiting until we were practically about to marry while I knew nothing about him having another child. It hurt so much because I felt deceived. My head swam with questions. How could I trust him at all? How could we build a family life if the foundation was already cracked by his lies? I asked how he thought I could ever forgive it. He said he was counting on my love and understanding. That night I did not sleep. I lay there wondering what to do. Should I end things or try to understand and accept? I loved him. He was so close to me, so dear. I remembered how he took care of me when I was sick, bringing hot tea, inventing silly jokes to make me laugh, how we walked in the park discussing names for our future children, believing we were made for each other. And then, in a single instant, it all collapsed because he had been living a double life. All those work trips he used as excuses to visit his child, all those late-night calls turned out to be conversations with another woman who was raising his son. In the morning, we talked again. He came with flowers, saying he understood how much pain he had caused me, that he wanted to save our relationship at all costs. He said the child was growing up without a father nearby and he wanted to stop lying, so the boy could see him more freely, not just occasionally. I was silent. He told me I should not blame the child and that the boy had never met me, but I could become a good stepmother for him. I felt torn. Pity for the child, anger at him, heartbreak over how my fairy tale was ruined. I said I could not simply move past his lie and pretend all was well. He answered that I should not leave him now because our wedding was soon. Guests already knew, we had booked a restaurant. Everyone was expecting a celebration. I sensed him using pressure by pointing out that everyone already knew about the wedding, that it would be a disgrace to cancel. I felt uneasy, as if he was manipulating me with the fact we had already announced our upcoming marriage. I asked him to give me time to sort out my feelings. He nodded, though he looked displeased. He said he knew I was in shock, but we should not waste time because the sooner I accepted his son, the better for both of us. Days passed, and I lived in constant anxiety. My mother would call, asking about wedding details since not much time remained until the planned date. I could not bring myself to tell her the truth. I just said I had doubts but had not decided. She sensed something serious was happening and offered to help. I said I was not ready to discuss it. She found this strange, because only recently I was excited discussing ideas about the dress, table decorations, but now I became cold and distant. My friends also wondered what was going on, because I no longer chatted about wedding plans. One close friend came to see me at home and asked why I seemed so miserable, if I wanted to tell her anything. I broke down in tears, told her my fiancé had a child he had hidden all this time. She gasped, calling it terrible, asking if I would leave him. I said I did not know. I loved him but could not accept that he had lied so badly, nor that he now demanded I become a stepmother to his child. My friend said she felt for me, but the choice was mine, that if I chose to stay and forgive, I would have to accept the child always being around, and if I could not, I should walk away before it got worse. Meanwhile, he kept talking about his son as an inevitable part of our future family. When I tried to object, he replied that I must understand that a true marriage meant accepting my spouse's past along with all errors. But I could not bear the fact that from the start, he had based our relationship on lies. I asked him repeatedly why he had not told me earlier. Each time he said he was afraid to lose me. Now he was using the fact that the wedding was near as leverage so I would surrender. I felt cornered, because if I refused to accept his child, I would look cold-hearted. Yet if I agreed, I would be living with a man who betrayed me and forced me to endure the presence of a secret child. I went to bed with a painful heaviness inside. I dreamed that he was sitting with his child in our living room, laughing and playing, while I watched them, feeling a storm of jealousy, as if his past was destroying my peace. But the child was not at fault, and that was my greatest dilemma. I understood that the boy never asked to be born under lies and betrayal. Yet the thought of me suddenly becoming his second mother made me uneasy. It all happened against my will. It seemed to me that my fiancé did not value my feelings, but saw me only as someone who had to turn a blind eye to his old sins. I got a call from a woman. She introduced herself as the mother of that child. I did not know what to say. She immediately took an aggressive stance, telling me that since I planned to marry him, I should understand that his son would be part of our family. There was no reason to cause drama, that he would always support the boy, and I had to accept it. She said that if I truly loved him, I should be mature enough to back him up in his desire to be a good father. I nearly burst into tears from humiliation, because it seemed as though she was pinning the blame on me, as if I were the one trying to ruin something, even though in reality, he was the one who hid his fatherhood from me all this time. When I told him about that call, he said he was glad we had spoken, since it was another step toward everyone communicating. He acted as if he had already decided I would agree, and that we would all be one big family. 2 women and me, a father present both with me and with the child from that other woman. The whole thing sounded insane, but he evidently saw it as a normal compromise. My feelings did not matter to him. I tried explaining that for me, the realization that he had been living a double life all these years was a crushing blow to my trust. But he kept focusing on the child, praising how wonderful the boy was, as if that alone would make my worries vanish. I said it broke my heart to think he had been giving affection not only to me, but also to that other woman, even if he swore there was no love left. He was still not a stranger to her, plus they talked regularly for the child's sake, while I stayed in ignorance. I noticed he was blaming me for not getting over the shock. He would say I was stalling, even though the wedding was close, and that could ruin all our plans. I replied that maybe we should postpone the wedding. He said that would cause a scandal, we had already booked the restaurant, and my family would be disappointed. I felt like I was trapped on all sides, dealing with heartbreak, and he was shaming me for risking the entire ceremony. The worst part was, he did not show genuine remorse, only the desire for me to accept the situation I discovered. I thought if he had told me everything at the beginning, maybe I could have found the strength to forgive. Over time, we might have formed a more truthful relationship. But now that it was revealed after so many years of lying, I did not see a way back. If he could lie to me for so long, maybe from the start, sincerity between us was endangered. I told him I could not just flip a switch, but he insisted that sometimes in life we must accept reality as it is. Soon he brought me a photograph of his son, telling me to look how sweet the boy was, and that once we were married, the boy could stay with us so I could become a genuine support for him. Deep down, I felt a sharp sting, because I did not want that burden. The lie had shattered my trust, and now he demanded I voluntarily care about that child. I glanced at the picture. Indeed, it showed a cute, dark-haired boy, but the whole situation gave me a sinking feeling since I never chose this. One day, we quarreled badly. He arrived with wedding paperwork, said I had to sign some documents for the restaurant. I replied that I could not think about the restaurant until we resolved our problem. He was annoyed, saying I was overcomplicating things, that these were just formalities and personal issues could wait. I flared up, saying it was his actions that made me unable to sleep peacefully. He accused me of exaggerating, said we had to focus on the future. I cried out, "How can we discuss the future when I do not understand the present or accept his secret?" He argued that it was not a secret but only a fact of life he withheld to spare me pain. I called it betrayal. He raised his voice, saying if I truly loved him, I would not label it betrayal. I broke down in tears, my hands shaking, feeling at the brink of collapse. I did not see how to escape this nightmare. Deep inside, I still loved him, but realized he had destroyed my trust and now forced me to make an easy choice for him. Accept the child, ignore the lies, and proceed to a wedding as if nothing happened. My parents saw I was losing weight and had stopped smiling. My mother insisted I tell the truth. I gathered my courage and confessed that he had a child all along, that he had kept it from me from day one, and now wanted me to be a stepmother. My mother listened, shook her head, and said she felt sorry, but I had to decide because I was the one who would have to live with him. She was right. My father was furious at the deception, saying I should not rely on him since he had lied to me. I realized my parents would firmly oppose him if they knew all the details, but inside I wrestled with my complicated feelings. The date of the wedding was approaching. Guests awaited confirmation, yet I did not know what to say. I asked him to move the date, but he refused because we had already paid a deposit, plus everyone was expecting us. I told him I did not care about the deposit or others' expectations. I cared that we fix what was broken. He said I was selfish, not thinking about how many people we would inconvenience. I felt that, for him, it was more important how we looked in public and the money we might lose than my heartbreak. Things got worse when that woman, the mother of his child, called again. She said she did not want any scandal at the wedding, and if I would be his wife, I had to accept without complaints that her son would appear in our home. She spoke calmly, but every word cut me like a knife. I was being told I had no say in the matter. I tried replying that it was my decision and his, not hers, but she said if he was the father, then the child had every right to him and no one could deprive him of that. Finally, she said she hoped I would be sensible. After that call, I had a meltdown. I sat in my kitchen, weeping, until that close friend came, who knew my situation. She hugged me, asked why I was enduring all this. I had no answer because I loved him, and the thought of leaving frightened me, but staying under these lies was unbearable. My friend said I had to be decisive about living with a man who not only hid a child from me but now demanded I become part of the child's life. If I lacked the emotional strength for that, it was better to leave. A couple of days later, he came to me with one last ultimatum. He said either I accept his son and we proceed with the wedding on the set day, or it would be better to break up because he was done beating around the bush. He said if I chose to break up, we would both suffer losses. We had a non-refundable deposit at the venue, invitations had been sent, people bought gifts, and everything might collapse. I felt a cold emptiness inside, because it felt like blackmail. It hurt to see him care more about how we looked to others than about my state of mind. I asked if he really did not care about my pain. He dismissed that, saying I was just being hysterical because of an unpleasant discovery, while everything was solvable if I would just accept the child and stop making a scene. I could not bear it any longer. I said I would not continue like this. We had a fight. I shouted that he ruined my world, then blamed me for it. He answered that he would not grovel and beg for something that should be obvious. I was crying and told him to get out. That night, lying in bed, I realized it was the end. My love met such a massive rift in our relationship that there was no going back. In the morning, with heartache, I packed some essentials and went to stay with my parents. I canceled my work appointments for a few days. My mother saw my condition and did not press me. She let me cry, then said I had to consider with what sort of man I wanted to spend my life. She said the child was not to blame, that the father was at fault for choosing a path of deceit. I felt their support but still mourned inside for him. A few days later, we talked on the phone for what turned out to be the last time. I asked if this was truly the end. He said that since I would not accept his child, there was no point continuing wedding plans, and it was up to me what to say to guests and so on. I said that if he was taking that route, there would be no wedding. He said he would return the key to my place and I could collect my things at his. I asked if I could come talk peacefully. He said he did not want to waste more time on my indecision. I arrived to find him carrying a bag of my items to the door. He told me he had already told his relatives that the wedding was postponed indefinitely. I stood there in the entryway, holding the bag that contained my dresses, some household items, feeling cold inside as I realized this was not a joke, but an actual breakup with the man I had loved wholeheartedly. Those days, I canceled our wedding, explained to friends and relatives that there would be no celebration. People were shocked because everyone believed we were the perfect couple. Then came the questions, why, what happened? I did not want to share details, as I felt embarrassed about my own naivety. So I just said there were irreconcilable differences. My parents supported me, saying it was better to stop now than live a lie. They were right, but the pain did not vanish. He no longer tried to contact me. Sometimes I saw him on social media posting pictures looking fine. Sometimes I noticed a photo of a boy, though he never added explanations. People in the comments seemed curious whose child it was, and he did not respond. It looked like he continued his life, now without me. I saw those pictures and felt sorrow, for we once shared joy, but now his joy belonged to that other child with another woman. My friend visited and asked if I regretted letting him go. I burst into tears, saying that yes, I missed him because my heart could not switch off, but at the same time, I could not live with such deceit. She told me the pain would fade and I would find someone honest eventually. I gradually recovered. I changed jobs, rented a new apartment so I could have fewer memories. I packed away everything connected to him, the engagement ring, small souvenirs, photos, and tried to move forward. Sometimes at night, I woke up thinking maybe I acted foolishly, but then reminded myself that he had destroyed trust. I did not invent his second child, nor did I force him to lie all those years. I imagined what life would be like if I had agreed to accept that child. But I always understood deep down I would never have found peace because the lie was too vast and his behavior after the confession showed little remorse. He was merely looking for a convenient arrangement. I recall how he scolded me about being more wise. He called it wisdom, but I saw it as pressure. My mother said one day I would meet another man who would accept me without such secrets. I began to believe it, because not all men hide secret wives and children from their fiancés. I gradually rebuilt my self-esteem, stopped feeling guilty for refusing to become a stepmother just to salvage a wedding. Almost a year later, I got a brief message from him. Hello? How are you? I sat for a long time with my phone but decided not to reply. I did not want to reopen old wounds. Maybe he had something important to say, but I had no energy for it. Later, he wrote again, wanting to meet and discuss something, but I remembered how he demanded I accept his son with no real apology. and I chose not to go back to that pain, so I blocked his number and tried to forget it. Now, when I look back, I see that all of it was a hard but necessary lesson about the importance of trust in a relationship. If, from the start, he had told me about his child, we might have built something differently, a relationship with no secrets. But he chose lies, and then pressured me once the truth came out, wanting me to accept everything unconditionally. Even for the sake of love, one should not crush one's own self-respect. There is no happiness in a family if one partner thinks he can hide an entire other life with a child, then demand your acceptance the moment he sees fit. Some might say I missed my chance. Maybe the boy really was lovely, and I could have gained a bigger family. But what family can be based on lies and manipulation? He was secretly maintaining contact with that woman from whom he supposedly wanted to hide, but it looked more like he simply wanted to have it all. If he truly valued me and wanted an honest relationship, he would have told me from the beginning. Then together we would decide how to handle it. But he did not. He was afraid of the truth, and in the end, I was devastated by the discovery that for him, truth was not of real importance. I live more calmly, without the fear that at any moment another secret might surface. Sometimes, I miss his smile, how he used to bring me coffee in the morning, yet I do not want to return to a place where my opinion is disregarded. I hope my story will serve as a reminder not to forgive endless lies, that sometimes it is better to leave in time, giving oneself a chance to find something healthier and more genuine. I do not know what happened to him. Maybe he will marry the mother of his child or meet another woman who accepts his terms. That is no concern of mine anymore. I have let go of the past, though it left scars, it also made me stronger. I spent many nights crying and grieving the lost love, but eventually I understood that love should not feel like a choking band around your neck, where one person commands and the other must submit for the sake of appearances. We are responsible for our own happiness, and if someone does not respect our trust, we must learn to say no. If one day I receive another proposal, I will pay more attention to how that man relates to honesty and to my feelings. You cannot build a life with someone who can conceal a child for years, then manipulate you with wedding plans and family reputation, demanding unconditional acceptance. Some may find that harsh, but life taught me self-respect matters more than illusions. That is my entire story, full of pain, tears, and confusion, but also the rebirth of my character. My fiancé turned out to be someone else entirely. He confessed he had a secret family but did not truly ask forgiveness, only said that I had to accept his second child. I refused because you cannot force love and forgiveness on demand. Once love and trust are broken, only cold emptiness remains. I closed that door and moved forward, hoping someday I will meet a man who sees honesty not as a hollow word, but as the genuine foundation of our relationship.